Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. I'm Alistair Shipley. This is Not So Average with my newest guest today, with David Cree. We go way back. This was one of my first jobs out of university that we worked together here in the small tech realm of Calgary, Alberta, called Noble Technologies. Yeah. That's where we first met, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Noble Technologies, you were already there when I came on, I think.
Yeah.
And,
I think I was in the transition period of moving down to San Francisco at that point in time.
Totally.
Yeah, that was a pivotal part of my life. Definitely changed my trajectory.
It was a crazy moment in startup life to just jump in like that.
Yeah.
You guys were starting startup.
500 startups.
500 startups.
Yeah.
Before it became 500.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. That was batch 15 for 500 startups. And I just remember the pitch day just being like, that was surreal because we spent 4 months, for anybody that doesn't know anything about 500 startups. It's this incubation program for startups down in Mountain View, California. And
it's where it was. Now it's here in Calgary. But
yeah, different program. Different. Yeah. So they brought you down. They basically hedged their bets on investing in these companies. So they'd invest in you, put you through a 4-month program, educate you, try and help you network, grow their investments. And that was the wildest part of my working career ever. Those 4 months were crazy. Did you come down and visit us?
Yeah, because we did the Macy's. I think it was the same weekend we went to do Macy's.
Yeah.
And so we were talking with them. We came into 500.
Yeah.
I didn't see you there, so I think that was like post shitstorm.
Okay. Yeah. No. That was a fun story, but maybe not always suitable for on the air. But I did have an experience, and I left this organization. I also got scooped up by another one while I was down there.
I would say that was a launching point for you. Like if anything, it
was a wild time. I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah.
I remember when I got the offer letter from the new employer, I was like, called up my parents, I'm moving to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I can't say that the whole reason was because of work. There was definitely somebody at the time that I was like, I'm going to hang out here.
Right. Yeah.
But the stuff that you learn in such a dynamic startup environment was incredible. But I wanted to dive in and start asking you some questions because I can obviously ramble about myself.
Yeah.
But so the idea of this podcast is to highlight people's experiences, their successes, their losses. And I always like to start off in the earlier parts of your career. And so the first question that I have for you is, what sparked your passion for startups and entrepreneurship? And maybe even just share a little bit about what you've done here in the Calgary community and maybe how it pertains to being on the show.
Yeah, okay. That's a big loaded question. We could probably go for 30 minutes right now. I think the first thing that got me in startups was that I came back, I was living in the States, and I came back to Edmonton, my hometown. Spruce Grove, my hometown. I'm working in Edmonton.
We hold no judgment.
Yeah, I'm still an Oilers fan too. I can't shake that, man.
Okay,
I was watching Oilers win lots of cups, man. But anyway, different story. So yeah, I came back. My dad actually had been diagnosed with cancer. And I just didn't want to be living and working in the States and so far away from him if it was going to be his last, because it was terminal. And so I came home to be closer to him. Found a job selling websites. And I knew that I wanted to get into business.
Like the development of websites or the actual URLs?
Yeah, we were doing just like development of websites. This was like 2004.
Okay.
2004, yeah. And so we're selling all these websites to businesses, and I just couldn't get over these businesses were all, what they were looking for was more traffic, more business, more sales. Mm-hmm. That's what they were trying to solve. And thinking that just building a website was going to solve that for them. And I had to sell it that way. And it's come to a quick realization that's just not true. Google was just coming out, like starting to really get traction. Yellow Pages was still the biggest advertising vehicle for small business. And I'd walk into customers talking about Google and they'd be like, what is that?
Because the websites at that point in time, you just search, your URL was basically what people would search by. You'd be like games.com or books.
Yeah, it was like starting to get more sophisticated, but yeah, it was like at the time when, search phrases were starting to diversify and we actually were starting to look at search marketing. Like search marketing was starting to become a term. And I just saw an opportunity right away. Actually, a friend of mine who's in entrepreneurship still to this day was building something and he was looking at search marketing and he went to this other firm in Edmonton that wanted to charge him $60,000 for a keyword research study.
Wow.
Which today you can
Google
go to
Analytics.
SEMrush and software like that for $20 a month, whatever, and get everything you need. So and it was basically an Excel spreadsheet with a ton of keywords on it and what their rankings were on Google and stuff. I was like, I can do that. That's easy. So
that's where you got started?
Struck my business and said I'm going to do search engine optimization, help businesses like go from websites to actually selling. And that was really fun. It was really successful. We expanded into Calgary because we were picking up so many businesses. And then at the time, my wife was coming to law school here. So we moved to Calgary and I opened up shop here. And I decided to open up my shop at Calgary Technologies in the Alistair Ross
building by the University of Calgary.
Alistair Shipley.
Yeah. Different spelling.
It's like, is the Alistair Shipley's Technology Center?
Man, one day I will have my own building. I can't wait.
So I was in there and there was tons of startups and stuff. And that's where I had the idea to create a tech magazine. So we actually launched a tech magazine in Alberta called Propel.
Propel.
Yeah. And we had tons of different...
Where were you hiding this on your LinkedIn?
Oh, it's probably gone. I don't know. It might be on there somewhere. And so, we launched this magazine, did this amazing issue. We got it funded. We had the Minister of Technology, Doug Horner at the time, was our lead story. And we did stories on a bunch of different startups in town at the time. And then I got really sick. Like my business, I had 2 locations, had this magazine going. I was like growing in the startup world. I was getting asked to speak all the time. And I got really sick, heart sick. And I ended up in the hospital that Christmas. And I remember the doctors coming and saying, you are the sickest person in this hospital.
On a
Didn't
Christmas.
know what was going on. Yeah, it was right before Christmas. And so I was spent basically a month over Christmas in the hospital. And that was at the same time my wife decided to leave me. That was end of the relationship. And the business, that was 2008, which you wouldn't remember this, but like in 2007, there was a massive crash. Massive real estate market, stock market, everything crashed. Big correction in the market. And the first thing that every business cuts in those times is marketing. And so we had to lay off employees. I ended up in debt, sold the business to another person. Because after like the marriage had split up, I had 3 girls that were around the age of 5 and 7. And so for me, I was like, I cannot. When I came out of that sickness and recovered, it took me like 6 months to recover from that. It was a heart infection, which they don't know how it got there. They don't know. They did so many tests, like hundreds of tests to figure out how I got this heart infection. And the only way I can describe it is I was in a really toxic relationship. And that was the one that ended when my heart finally gave out. And I was in the hospital. My heart was like done. My pericardium was squeezing it. And she left.
So you think there was a correlation between the stress?
I think just the relationship, the way I was ignoring. Like I had worked on it for a bit, but then I had gotten to a point where I was like, I'm just in this for my kids. So I'm just going to stick it out. But it was toxic. It was awful for me. And took me quite a bit to get out of that, to shake that loose, and some counseling and whatnot to recover my own self-confidence. But
when did you start to rebuild and start getting back into kind of the new ventures and new paths for your business?
Yeah, like I took a couple of years to just spend time with my kids. So I just did a sales job. And then when I settled in Calgary in 2011, I started looking for marketing jobs.
Okay.
To get back into the marketing game. Ended up at Rare Method, which was a huge marketing agency in Calgary at the time. They used to run the biggest Stampede parties, like massive, like down right here, like we're looking over Fort Calgary. And I remember Rare Method booking out Fort Calgary and having 3 different stages, like amazing Stampede parties.
And they don't exist anymore.
Gone.
Wow.
There was a publicly traded marketing company.
What happened to them?
I didn't know this, but when we joined on, like they were burning like $200K a month in cash, and just trying to plug the holes in the ship.
Yeah.
And I came on as like their digital manager, and they quickly elevated me to like digital director because my marketing experience. And then we basically let that company bankrupt, and we took the clients and reworked a new company called Rare.
Yeah.
And so we built that marketing. I was an owner now in that with 3 partners. And then Arcane came to town from the east and they bought that. So we got sold.
Oh,
was
cool.
Great.
What was that process like?
Crazy. It was fun. It was actually fun. It was fun
Yeah?
to sell a company. Yeah. Get to know these other guys and go through the whole process of negotiation and figuring out who stays, who goes.
Was there only one potential buyer at that point, or was there multiple?
Yeah,
before?
no, it was like we weren't even necessarily looking to sell. We were just building our company, and they approached us and said they were looking for an agency in Calgary to manage a couple of their key accounts in the West, and it was good timing for us. Yeah.
Wow. So that was like 2015 or so?
That was like 20. That was, before I joined Noble.
Wow.
That's right. That was right before it. Yeah.
And is Arcane still kicking around?
They
looks
are.
like
They actually just got sold to largest agency in the world, Republics.
Okay.
Yeah. So we now have a Republics in Calgary.
Interesting.
And which is,
Huh.
that says something about where we're at in Calgary.
Yeah, there's a lot of boom in this city. You see it, and you'll probably discuss it a little bit, the growth of this, even the startup community.
Massive.
And
Yeah.
it's wild. So then you came on, we were working together. There's a little overlap.
Plus a third.
Yeah.
We had the third use list. Do you need, I don't want to say, but
No. And then right after that, the topic that I really wanted to spend some time on was you got into Common Good Linens.
yeah, that was big. And like so way back in 2006, 2007, when I was running that SEO business, actually that's where you want to run. Yeah, somewhere around there is when I launched actually the SEO business. When I think about it, I did this leadership course where I spent a day being homeless.
Homeless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I woke up early in the morning and I didn't shower or anything, and I just took my work clothes, my work shoes, and my old work jacket from years and years old, and hit the street and just started walking.
Was it like a class or just by yourself?
By myself. Yeah.
Okay.
It was just an assignment.
Wow.
Yeah. And the assignment specifically was like, you go be homeless until you beg for $15. And as long as you got $15, you could do what you want after that.
Yeah.
And I just went out and I just started hitting the street, talking to some of the guys that were sitting there.
Yeah.
And I was just absolutely shocked at.
You're talking to homeless people or just anybody?
Guys sitting on the street begging for money, just hanging out.
Wow.
And the first guy actually I tried to talk to, he was mumbling gibberish, basically, just severely mentally ill.
Okay.
Didn't belong on the street, for sure. Couldn't hold a conversation. Second guy I met clearly had some issues around his mental state.
Okay.
Pretty much everybody I met had something.
Yeah.
Some of it drug induced, some of it managing that with drugs. I just was really shocked by the state of people that were on the street, and it just broke my heart. about all that. And then what really was surprising is how, like, I always grew up feeling like Canadians are the nicest people in the world. Right?
That's the narrative that the rest of the world believes too. Yeah.
And that day, I saw, like, I have never, ever before that, and never since that day, ever experienced such hate. Like, I was, like, people wouldn't look, if they didn't, like, verbally assault you, then they just didn't want to look at you.
They didn't humanize you at all.
They didn't even want to recognize that I was there. They, like, there was, like it was just this really, it was like almost you're in this, like, post-apocalyptic world, or like in the Matrix, like walking through the Matrix where nobody recognizes you and you're just like going through. That's what it felt like just nobody even recognized I was there. And I'd go across the sidewalk and someone would jaywalk like across the street just to get away from the sidewalk from me. They just didn't want to brush air.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like really bizarre. And then trying to hold out my hand to beg money was really tough. Like to actually raise your hand and ask someone on this, like, I need money.
Yeah.
Like, that was really hard.
I can only imagine. That'd be incredibly difficult. That's coming from a guy that did door-to-door sales for 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you're like doing a job, you're making money.
Yeah.
This is, I've got nothing, I need money.
Yeah.
And just the shame of that came from asking someone for money was intense. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And then how did that drive you to starting Common Good Linens?
Yeah. So, I mean, like that ultimately just, I was just like, this is a massive problem. Like, I couldn't believe that this was happening in Canada. And then I went to the course and spent the day with the gentleman that had us do that assignment, and just opened my eyes to all the different issues. Ended up going to Toronto, sitting in for coffee with a friend of mine that works the Gateway shelter that had been in the course as well. And he was telling me about his shelter and how they had started this program, this laundry program for men to help them recover.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, tell me more. And the men just like really, from his words, like they absolutely loved the quiet, peace environment, the repetitiveness of just folding towels, folding clothes. Like it was just, but especially the dignity of getting a paycheck at the end of the day. If they haven't had that for years, to say I made $60 today, I made $80 today.
Well, that goes a long way.
Take that home and buy their own beer, buy their own whatever they want, buy their own steak. And yeah, I was just really moved by that program that he was doing and asking him, like, could you expand it? And he said, there's a few other places that do pay them to do it, but they just didn't have the capacity to expand it or to grow it. And none of them were business people, they're all social workers. And and so I was like, okay, maybe I could do that. Like maybe could we create a laundry service company that hired people coming out of those programs? And it just sat there and bugged me for the longest time until when we sold to Arcane. I left the company about 6 months later, and that was when I was like, okay, I think I couldn't ignore this idea. That's really what it was. It just kept on coming at me so much that I was like, okay, I need to actually explore this. And that's really when I came, right around the time that I came on to Noble. And as we were building and selling Noble, I was very quietly and slowly spending 5-6 hours a week thinking through Common Good and wondering about how we could do it, starting to talk to some of the shelters in town and the recovery programs in town to ask them about what the feasibility would be, how we would create that program. Started talking to restaurants, asking them if they'd be interested in it. And that's when I was like really surprised at how much pain I uncovered at restaurants. Like they would start swearing about their current providers. They hated their current providers. Like just
it's a passionate industry.
With passionate hatred. And I was just like, okay, we have something here for sure. And we took that to investors, we took it to restaurants, we took it to the nonprofit sector, and everybody was, this is good. And so then when everything has finished at Noble, they were basically oversold their capacity to develop. Like they had 18 months of development to catch up to everything you and I were doing.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, I can't hang out here and do nothing. So
When you wanted to start that.
It was time. I launched Common Good like next week.
So do you believe that timing is a huge part in why you started it then, or would it have started at another point in your life? It sounds like it was eating away at the back of your brain for a while.
For sure, like it was gnawing at me, and it got loud enough that it was unignorable for me, which was like that was really, it was more than a business idea to make revenue. Like that was truly a passion project to see if we could solve a problem in Canada.
Yeah.
And we also wanted to like really highlight the people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And how human and real and in need they are of just a home, a job, stability, look me in the eye, treat me like a human again.
Yeah. Was that part of the biggest, I guess, challenges that you encountered, was just like the view on your staff? Or what were some of the bigger problems that you experienced?
Yeah, like there definitely was the odd. It was interesting. I don't think we had, I can't remember. I think maybe one restaurant said, I don't think I want a homeless person coming into my restaurant.
Yeah.
Serving my linens.
Yeah.
But we got 100 customers.
Is that restaurant still in
that
existence
we came,
though?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But when we came into a restaurant, for the most part, they were like, yeah, let's do this. Like they were super excited. We had a lineup of customers. We just needed the capital to serve them. Yeah.
With that, it was like the ability to grow was there, is just a capital intensive.
Yeah, like we grew really well. Like when we launched, we got 3 customers on our launch date, which was perfect for us. We didn't want too much because so much logistics around that population and trying to get and we were like basically delivering out of our minivan, like linens, and working out of the basement of the DI. It was out of our own plant. We just had to bring all our stuff in.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock at night, start doing laundry. Sometimes we were working until
like
2,
the
3
drop-in
in the morning.
center?
Yeah, drop-in center. Yeah, drop-in shelter. That's what we did. That's where we started the business, in the basement there.
Wow.
And at night, so we would work till 2, 3 in the morning, getting laundry done, and then we'd get up at 5 in the morning and deliver. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So this was your full-time gig, but you were doing it in the middle of the night, doing the deliveries first thing in the morning, because for those that don't understand, like the culinary industry, their day starts well before you show up at the restaurant at 6 in the morning or 6 in the evening. Yeah, you have the bakers there first thing in the morning. You have the prep cooks. This was a passion of mine. I was in the culinary industry for nearly 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. I think it was my friend Derek that I interviewed. We got into it. I had originally gone to school with the intentions on being a restaurateur.
Okay.
So I went to SAIT's hospitality management program.
Yeah.
I had done my years in the back of house. I had just started in the front of house. I was ready to basically start restaurants. So I went to business school at Mount Royal with intentions on, once I was done that, I would get into interior design, because I actually have quite the creative side that generally shows up in Christmas presents around this time of year when I design them out. But yeah, I got into that, and then I met Ray DePaul, who you know, I went from going this way to going complete 90 degrees right way. So
Ray has been real critical for so many people.
He's what do you call it? The shadow hand? I don't know.
Yeah, very quiet guy, but has had impact on so many people.
He's changed the direction of a lot of people. So yeah, culinary industries. But you were experiencing that. You're working late because that's when you had the access to resources. Because you're running pretty asset light because those machines are expensive too.
Yeah. Like we ended up buying a plant a year in. Yeah, we bought a plant a year in. Cost us $360,000.
Jeez, and that's just for the plant. That's not even to operate it.
Oh, I know, yeah. The operations were unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's where I learned a lesson.
Okay. So where was your lesson? Yeah, what's the lesson? That's what we're here for.
Oh my God.
The things that you don't share on your Instagram or LinkedIn.
We were looking for a plant. Someone said, oh, go to this cleaner in town. They're selling this business. So we go talk to them and they're like, yeah, we got this plant for sale. We got all this business out in Banff. Hotel business, right? So came with 10, 11 hotels that were doing daily service of
Okay.
linens and the plant, all the sheets, everything to
Yeah.
service this.
Based here in Calgary.
Yeah.
They're commuting out to Banff.
Yeah, right
particularly.
over in the East End beside Executive Mat, same plant. And so we decided to buy them. We were trying in the process to get their numbers for the hotel business. And he gave me this just massive, massive sheet with all these revenue numbers and
Yeah.
whatnot. We went through it and like it looked like there was a ton of revenue there. What we didn't look at close enough is how much he was spending on labor and gas and all these other things, repairs, downtime. Oh. So anyway, we took this business over and this was like 7 days a week
Yeah.
laundry
Bell to
service.
bell.
And we have one ironer that can do sheets, right? Like it's a big, massive iron you could not even fit in this apartment.
Just for the king size
iron.
sheets. Yeah.
And it just whips king sheets out seconds, irons them, right? Really super fast.
Yeah.
And if it would break down, like hotels are waiting for their sheets on a date. Like he had it so tight that basically the hotel could not wait a day
Wow.
for the sheets. So we could not have a down day. Just couldn't happen. Like hotels would get so ticked at us.
Yeah.
So it was hard, man. It was like super, super rough. And we were getting into it and our revenue had grown quite a bit, but our profit was not growing. And we were like, man, like this is getting tougher and the cash is getting tighter and tighter. And this is where I leaned on my board that I had created. I had a good solid board of people that had tons of experience in all different kinds of industries.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my board members was just like, okay, you need to do a production audit. And I was like, how do I do that? Because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Right?
What does that entail?
And so he's okay, you gotta track every 15-minute period of every employee in the company. Yeah. And they gotta write down. Write down what they do every 15 minutes. And so basically we did that with every single employee in the company. What are you working on out throughout the day? And we took it for a whole week-long period, every day for a week. And then we evaluated all those numbers from all of our output to what we were getting in revenue. And what we discovered in that audit was that 60% of our revenue was coming from our restaurant hospitality rental business, which we just delivered once a week for the most part, sometimes twice a week. That was it. And 30% of our revenue was coming from the hotel business that we had to deliver every single day and was killing us. And then we looked at our costs. 30% of our costs was that restaurant business. 60% of our costs was the hotel business. So hotel business was basically losing money and couldn't figure that out until we did that good production audit.
And then what did you do once you figured that out?
Axed it immediately.
You fired your clients.
Fired them all.
How did that feel?
We're not doing this anymore.
How did that feel?
They were like, it was so hard to do. There were some really great people out there that I really enjoyed the relationship with customers, but the service was so hard. It felt so good to let go of it.
Did you have to give them 1 month's notice?
We
those sort of things?
we emailed everybody like a 3-week notice, I think it was, because like the linen services are like trying to get that business. There's big, massive linen companies that will pick you up tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? And so they had plenty of time, right? There was one hotel that their service person was like away and didn't forward their emails to anybody, so nobody got the notices. Nobody answered the phone, so they ended up with basically a 2-day notice when she got back. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't service you. I can't service you one customer.
Yeah.
And he was super mad at me. And that was the one time that I told the customer, bye, Felicia, at the end of my conversation.
Bye, Felicia.
He was just like cussing, cursing, and I was just like, bye.
This communication is now ended.
Yeah. He was like, I'm going to destroy your name. I'm like, okay, bye, Felicia.
So what was the most rewarding part about Common Good? What did you really appreciate about what you built?
Oh, man.
Because Common Good was around for 6 years.
Yeah. There was a lot of accolades that came with it. and
accolades.
And that all felt good. So like we won Calgary Chamber of Commerce Social Enterprise of the Year.
Did that bring you business? What did those kind of accolades
maybe a little
bring
bit
for you?
Maybe a little bit.
It just felt
But
good.
we got a lot of news coverage. We got Startup Canada Award for Startup of the Year Prairies.
Did you apply for these, or were these ones that were
Some
somebody
we
else
applied for, other
knowledge?
ones we didn't.
Yeah.
And then we got some other award. We got three big awards, I'd say, that were pretty soon. We got the Trico Social Enterprise.
Okay.
And so we got all these awards, and then we also got some amazing coverage from news outlets. We got a story in Reader's Digest. We got Oprah. Oprah did a story on us, like Oprah.com.
Wow.
Like we were all over. And then
You get linens. You get linens. You get linens.
yeah, that's right. But I'll tell you, like I remember winning the Chamber of Commerce Award.
Okay.
Which was great, like a big recognition among the business community
You
here.
get a white hat?
All your peers.
No, that's a different. Okay, that's different.
And I got up the next morning. I didn't even want to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like the award just did not motivate me.
Interesting.
But I got a text from one of our workers. I'll call him Derek. And Derek actually was like when we announced that we were creating Common Good, we did it with a booster campaign on ATB, and we were able to get a news story right away. So like day 2 of Common Good, we were in the news. Mm-hmm. And he saw that news story and reached out to us. So he was reach out number 1.
Okay.
And his email was this long email about how he had done the forklift course, the WMIS course, the hospitality course, the this course, the that course. He had done 100 courses in his time being homeless in one of the shelters. But out of 200 different applications to businesses to get a job, not one would give him an interview out of 200. Not even an interview, because his address was 1 Dermot Baldwin Way.
Which is the drop-in center.
The drop-in center. And he was just begging for a job. He's just giving me an opportunity. He said, I've been clean for a year. I've been working my tush off. I've been doing all this.
I think you told me about this a couple of years ago, this gentleman.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so, he had come onto the business, and he had been working for us, I think, 3-4 months. The absolute, most joyful employee, worked his ass off every day, just great with the other employees. No issues.
He knew how hard it was to get to where he was.
He knew this was the right this was his one opportunity. And then so he takes a photo of a steak that he'd cooked on his stove. We didn't even know that he had gotten housed. He did it himself.
Wow.
We just gave him an opportunity. We gave him a paycheck. He went out and found a basement suite, and he got it rented, and he went to Safeway, and he bought a steak, and he brought it home, and he cooked it, and he texted me.
It was his first home-cooked meal, and
Yeah.
How long?
12 years.
That's some perspective.
So, when people ask me, what was the most rewarding aspect? That text message. It's the one thing that keeps coming back to me.
So the accolades, and we've had other guests on the podcast talking about them, they're readily available, but those text messages that get you out of bed, those are rarities, and obviously a huge driving factor.
And I'll show up at 5 a.m. every day for Derek. If he wants to work. If I had the opportunity to do something that we could make happen, man, that was motivating, right? To see our
What
guys.
was his name? Derek?
I call him Derek. I don't want to reveal.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's fair. Is he still in the industry?
No, he fell back in.
Oh.
No, it's actually terrible. He kind of highlights for me why homelessness is such a big issue for me, in that every single employee that I worked with, almost every single one, we ended up having a deep heart-to-heart sit-down. I never pushed it. It just would happen. Because you just can't go there with someone that's had all that trauma and living.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting at McDonald's once with Derek, and just myself and Derek, and he had just gotten back after ditching for 2 weeks. He just didn't show up to work. And I was just reaching out, trying to get a hold of him, trying to find out where he was at. So finally he calls up and he says, I'm sorry, I was riding the C train to work, and a small girl looked at me. She was really scared of me, and everyone was looking at me, and 'cause he wears the homelessness on his face, right? He's pretty weather torn, alcohol torn face. And so he just felt so ashamed and so isolated as someone who's homeless and scary,
Yeah.
that he took a bottle instead of coming to work, and went on a 2-week binge. And we were sitting down at McDonald's, and I'm just saying to him, what was going on in that moment? Like, when that little girl looked at you that way, and those people started looking at you, and you felt that way, like, when you think about it, what does that bring up for you? What, if you can think back to your earliest memory as a child, where do you remember feeling that feeling? Oh, God. Then he revealed to me that he was actually raped as a child when he was 11 years old. And he had never told a soul yet.
You were the first.
He was 57 years old, sitting at McDonald's after years and years of homelessness. And he'd been raped as a child and just never felt he could tell anybody about it. Never felt safe after that. Never. Like, just never dealt with that trauma. And he still hasn't. And another man, it was losing his entire family in one accident. The amount of childhood trauma was ridiculous.
That led to the
Absolutely
homelessness.
ridiculous. But there was not one person that I met that had it all good and nothing was wrong in their life, and they just started to drink. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, addiction and homelessness does not happen because you're irresponsible and start drinking. It happens because trauma.
led
And
you
you're
to
trying
drink.
to fill that hole with something.
Wow. That's a perspective I didn't expect getting into this podcast today. And I appreciate it though. Because yeah, it's, well, depending on the articles, some say homelessness is running rampant is a common terminology. And it's top of mind, but not top of the issue list for being addressed. But frankly, I don't think we have an answer for it too.
We do, we just don't have the will to get it done. The answer is housing.
Housing. That makes sense.
And not drop-in shelter housing. That's not housing.
Yeah.
It's not a safe
Something
place.
that's home.
You need a home over your head. You need a lock on your door. That's what I have brought it down to, is you need a lock on your door to be able to know that you're secure. You're warm, out of the elements. Nobody's going to rob you.
Psychologically, that's
rape
huge.
you.
Yeah.
No one can come into you while you're sleeping and attack you.
That level of security is probably more of a psychological
Absolutely.
thing that we take for granted.
Yeah, yeah.
I know full-heartedly that I sleep well and sound because I know I'm safe.
Yeah.
I don't think if I knew that I was unsafe that I could sleep and then therefore be a productive person in any fashion.
I was really taken by, I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson on a talk show. And it was a time when the sun.
That's a physicist?
Yeah, he's the big,
Yeah.
famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had just had an eclipse, a solar eclipse. And so everyone was like talking about, and actually it was the time when Donald Trump
Oh, okay.
stared up at the sun.
I've not seen this one.
And so and they're talking about all like the wonders of space and like travel and what's next. Like Elon's talking about landing in Mars and all these things. And Neil stops the conversation. He says, here's the problem. There's 4 million people in the world that they look at that eclipse and they can't even contemplate the stars and the wonders of the earth because they don't even have their basic needs met. So psychologically, they cannot think about those things.
4 billion people, yeah.
Your brain will not do it. Your brain will stay
You're in survival mode.
in this cortisol-induced survival mode until you are safe. Can you get rid of addiction before you're even in a home?
No,
How
'cause
hard would that be?
you're still stuck in the environment.
Yeah. So we have to have an environment that's safe for people. And that's ultimately what we came to as Common Good. And it became so clear, Common Good, because they would show up to work knowing that Common Good was a safe place. Like, they would tell me that, like, I had employees tell me to fuck off regularly.
Okay.
And I would just be like, are you having a bad day? Like, what's going on? Do you need a day off and come back tomorrow? Like, I just didn't take.
Yeah.
And if they just didn't show up, I was like, okay, this is expected. Like,
That must have been hard from a business stance, though.
100%. I always had to have a lot of plans in place to have, like, I always had people on hold.
Okay.
Or I was running down to
Overtime.
a drop-in shelter and grabbing somebody. Like, grabbing the next guy that's ready to go. And I just had my eye for certain things that I would look for, right? And yeah, we would try. But what we found is that we could not be successful because, like, they'd have a great day at work, they'd get their paycheck, they'd go back at night, and then they'd come in the next morning talking about how they got robbed last night, or something else happened in the shelter, or like they're sleeping in a room with a bunch of other people
That see that they're getting
with
a
all
paycheck.
their goods, all their everything they have in this world right there with them. And yeah, it's just, they would get re-traumatized constant. And when COVID hit, took the business out rapidly.
Because you were supporting the service industry, which is obviously
Every customer shut down.
hit.
Yeah, every single customer. Like,
And you weren't a non-for-profit either, so they
No.
couldn't
Yeah.
just maintain you for, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we had a month. So yeah, it took us out rapidly, but we were right on the cusp of a big pivot. Like, we were starting to organize to create or partner with a nonprofit that did the housing side so that we could have a 24/7 model where we were housing and employment.
Okay, so the other side of that, would you have then started running 24 hours operations as well from work? Yeah. Okay, interesting. So that shut down in 2022. Have you considered revisiting? It doesn't.
Yes, for sure. There's definitely, like, I've learned lessons about what was bad about it, like where we needed to pivot and feel like we could do this. But like, it just would require so much investment. I would really need to see a wave of momentum toward it. I think I couldn't go and build that out again.
Interesting.
It's just too much investment required, too much capital to get. I just don't see it. I don't think it's out there right now.
I think you definitely have the passion for it. I think you're the storyteller for it. So if there's the reason just has to be big enough for you to go find it. I think you're the guy to do it.
Well, we
for
need
sure.
the resources. Yeah.
The resources, yeah. I think you
And
could
I was
rally the
burnt
troops.
out. Honestly, I was burnt out.
I
That
bet.
was just a heavy lift, man. So yeah, I would need a team.
It's a heavy lift before the COVID even hit.
Yeah, but we were so close. Like, we were inches from profitability. We knew, like, we had the customers lined up, we had the capital. Like, June was going to be our first profitable month. And fucking COVID hit us in March. Like, it was just, that year we made a bid for another company for $16 million to buy them and go national.
60?
16 million.
And that was just going to be an acquisition, like a merger?
Yep.
Wow.
We're going to acquire the company. They had 10 plants across Canada, laundry plants. We were going to take over their business and create Common Good across the country.
I like just that as a campaign.
And then we had
common good.
And then we
Canadian-wide.
had federal contracts lined up. That's the thing, is like, if I could get the capital to do a 16 million acquisition and go federal, then no problem. We can make Common Good go. You need to be federal to be big accounts. There were so many accounts we couldn't get because we couldn't service all their Toronto customers and their Halifax, larger chains that have customers across the country.
So now when you sit and look back at Common Good, where are you at with it? Is it still a warm and fuzzy, or is there a level of regret that it ended the way it did? Is there compassion for it?
Lots of compassion for it. It was a very difficult loss at the time, for sure. And I still financially am feeling that loss, for sure.
Of course.
Will be for a few years yet. But nothing but gratitude for the opportunity to do it. Like we did it, right? Like we made it happen. And
you went after it.
We changed some lives and we changed some perspectives. And what has been really neat since then is like being asked to come to Ivy Business School to talk about the model, to teach the next generation of entrepreneurs, the next generation of EMBAs, right? These guys that are running big, massive companies across Canada. And they got to hear all the inner workings of Common Good and the story and the model, and understand how like business can have impact with little impact on the bottom line. Like you can look at things differently.
Do you see yourself taking on like a consulting role with some of these companies at some point, or is this pretty recent? Or
maybe like ever since I've been coaching and so basically consulting companies since, and just love it. Like I absolutely love working with startups, but also love, especially when I get a scenario that I can help create a social enterprise that has impact. It just means way more to me. I actually used to say a lot, and Peter got really miffed at this. So now I'm just going to say it anyway, I don't care. But Peter would get so mad when I say this, but it's absolutely true. I just don't give a shit about selling more jeans. And that was the biggest client we landed. 2 clients that we landed at Noble was selling jeans. And I was just like...
Tommy Hilfiger.
Like we landed Tommy Hilfiger, and I was just like, okay. I just did not give a shit.
That was my account.
Right?
I love that. Yeah.
But I just... Yeah, like it just did nothing for me, because it was like we're just like we're selling high fashion to people who have money. I just don't care. Yeah.
So how do you? Because the next role that you took on after Common Good was you went to Platform, where you're basically advising the next change makers for a community builder called Platform Calgary.
And the Social Impact Hub.
Social Impact Hub. So how?
So I just do contract for both now.
Yeah. How are you helping other startups and other companies put focus into for good for profit?
I would say that for most part, I'm just helping companies where they're at.
Okay.
And I tend to focus my time on finding the companies that have impact. So I spend a lot of time with Social Impact Hub at University of Calgary, and I've worked with tons of startups there, as well as their Research and Innovation Hub. Like I've been able to work, I remember working with the company that was bringing new education around family violence, and like this ability to preemptively identify where family violence is going to be and start to do intervention, intervention, treatment, like massive. And so the more I could help them, and I'm not necessarily helping them have impact.
Yeah.
I'm helping them sell more.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, let's go get more customers for you. Let's maximize that impact.
But that brings them money, which then means that their impact is spread further.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
Wow. So that obviously got you pretty jazzed up. You started smiling ear to ear. So what about these roles? What companies are getting you excited? What keeps you motivated right now?
It comes down to the relationships ultimately. I coach so many different founders. Sometimes we just don't have a fit.
Yeah, it's a relationship at the end of the day.
So it's a shorter relationship, and we go our separate ways. But the ones that we have a great fit with, like to this day, they'll call me, even if we're out of program long time later. They just call me because they just need that support. They need something. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go for coffee. And so the ones that excite me are the ones that I have good, solid relationship for sure, like that.
You've been good at that. You've been very good at that. You and I, well, it goes back, that would have been 2004. It's almost 10 years now. Yeah, and you still check in. I still check in on you. You're good for it. I can foresee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there's still people from Common Good that reach out to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you still have that relationship.
Totally, yeah. Lots of people in all different, all over
all your career paths.
But so many startups, like I've met so many startups 10 years later that they're like, yeah, I saw your Common Good story and it really inspired me to go build my own social enterprise. And that's really cool to know, right? So I feel like it was an amazing run. And think it's like, for me, the passion probably mostly is carrying forward, and I mentioned this to you, but I don't know if we've talked about it too much, but I'm going to run for city council. So,
So taking that approach to the government and making improvements and leaving an impact, that's exciting.
We got this like weird thing happening there where like this, I don't know if you're familiar with the Safe Injection site. Have you watched that? Like the one just down the street here.
No.
Just lots of people.
I didn't even know that there was one down here, but that's also
that
what I get
awesome.
for.
I love that you didn't even know that there's one because people are freaking out about it being down there.
Yeah.
It's just at Schmir.
Oh. Yes.
And but the province sent a note to the city to say, do you want us to close that? And asking basically the city councillors to say, yeah, we'll close it. But putting it on the city, like a big political move. And it just made me really, really angry that our most vulnerable population is being treated as political pawns over and over again. And we need people in there that actually want to collaborate with nonprofits, collaborate with business, collaborate with whoever will collaborate, and try to solve this in a more creative way.
Interesting.
That includes housing.
Yeah.
That includes creating a safe space for people.
Yeah. Housing's applicable to everybody up to a certain kind of income earning base.
Yeah.
It's not even just about the homeless at this point, but
100%. Like it's becoming hard for everyone.
Everybody. That's wild. Going back to your experiences in the startup industry and stuff like that, what do you, because now you've advised so many other companies, you've done it yourself. What are the key ingredients you find to successful startups? Is it purpose? Is it execution? You always hear these kind of buzzwords.
No doubt execution is always.
Yep.
Number one.
Realizing I just led you a little bit. I want you to answer that question on your own, but...
Yeah, the thing that I find is knowing your customer. I would say like the biggest issue is that we get an idea as founders and as serial entrepreneurs or founders, like that idea is like burning, right? Like it's something that burns in us. And when you like put your energy and your bravery and you're like getting up on a pitch stage, you do all these things to create this, to launch this. Like I often will coach and talk about it being your baby. And that has some really negative connotations and some really positive ones, right? Like when I talk about, when people say, like one typical thing I hear is, we're not going to have this product out for 6 months, so we're not going to do marketing until then. And I'm like, are you crazy? Or even on some that are in business and they're posting on Instagram once a week. And it's like, how does your baby survive on 1 bottle of milk a week? Like that is not going to feed the baby. Like you've got to be like every single day feeding the baby. So sales is not a one and done, and marketing is not. It is a daily activity, and understanding your customer is so absolutely critical. Like you need to know. Like making a sale is incredibly difficult. You and I both know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've been there. What's your best number that you'd say you've gotten in terms of closing rate?
My best closing rate depends on how far down the line, down my funnel you're talking. Because if we're talking door-to-door sales,
overall, whatever you would consider closing.
Door-to-door sales, I was about 25% when I got into the home, but that was the whole part of the metrics. Is getting into the home.
If once you get to the home, that's a different metric. Yeah.
It was about 1 in 10 people I talked to, I could get into the home.
Okay.
So then 1 in 4 I could close.
Yeah.
So
you're like 2.5%.
Yeah.
Okay. That's internet average, right? So
yeah.
That door at 2.5% conversion rate. Yeah, dead on. That means that like 97.5% of the people told you to
my customer,
basically, right? Didn't want.
They're not my customer right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Man, I don't even know where I was going with that, but.
The question was, what do you think the key points are for success in startups?
Yeah.
Key ingredients for being a successful startup.
Yeah, so like that closing rate, right? Man, that's burning a lot of oil, right? So if you can get that closing rate down to 50%, up to 50%, that'd be a dream, right?
Yeah. And
so how do you do that? By knowing that customer. Like, what is the trigger that makes them want to change?
Yeah.
Either their provider, their whatever, right?
Yeah.
And if you know that trigger, you can get in really quickly and close quickly.
Yeah.
And get to a no quickly. If you know all the triggers and the pain points, you can just have the conversation. And if the customer doesn't have them, you can say, I don't think we're a fit. See ya, bye. Move on to the next
Being comfortable walking away is probably something a lot of people aren't comfortable with.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. Or being quiet. Like, using a little bit of silence in your sales call is powerful. And people freak out about silence. Like, I've sat beside owners like Peter, sales managers, and I have a good closing rate. I have a really good closing rate. I close really well. I sell really well. But these guys would freak out when I would be like...
I won't say his name, but I'll never forget talking to Jay Lindenberg. We woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to meet the European conglomerate's time schedule. And this particular individual, I was a junior, but I definitely had way more sales experience. And he was steamrolling the conversation, and I told him he had to cut off. I'll never forget that conversation. We lost that client. The client responded to us. It seemed that we were too fragmented, and it was because we were having literally arguments between colleagues on the call.
Yes.
But yeah, getting comfortable being uncomfortable is probably something we could all do a lot better. And I'm not talking about just doing a polar plunge.
In many situations, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's awesome. So another question I have for you. So obviously Common Good had a social impact component.
Yeah.
How, when you're working as an advisor with these companies, do you help them incorporate more purpose into their business models? Or is that even something that you try and direct them on?
Sometimes, if it makes sense. It's not something that I want to push on someone if they're not inherently passionate about it.
Okay.
Like, I'll open up the ideas maybe in different areas, but like in these situations, I'm contracted to help a company like scale up quickly, as an example. And
I guess maybe in your
I think that the biggest area where I have impact in those situations is around how they treat their employees.
Okay.
I'm very big on, you will not go far if you don't focus on great culture.
Culture is such a hidden component to business that people don't really understand.
Yeah.
Because you can't really measure the monetization to it.
But yeah, I just seen it so many times that founders get so far, but their culture just sucks. And so it dies. And I think there's some really big, I'm not gonna, there's some really big startups in Calgary that their culture sucks and like they've gotten far, but I don't know how much farther they get and what happens from
It
here.
always works out as it's supposed to. They'll have their days.
Yeah.
If you had a crystal ball, where do you think Calgary's startup ecosystem is going to be in the next 5 years?
Oh, it's going to continue to grow. It's like all the signs are good right now.
Yeah.
Except for the city. Like
city
literally,
itself,
literally because I've been taking intake calls for like probably 3.5 years.
Okay.
Of like entrepreneurs coming to Calgary. There's so many people coming to Calgary to build their business.
Yeah.
Hundreds a month coming here to start a startup. And I've just heard a lot more people like, I can't stay here. It's not good. Can't find a place for cheap enough. They're just not liking the environment. Like too expensive, not good transit, not
So
the
infrastructure
things that
costs.
that bigger cities that offer more have, right? And Calgary's like on the cusp of that, where like we have some really big startup interest, but we have some really big startups that decided not to be here because, for example, we don't have the green line finished, things like that. Like they literally asked about, where's your transit plan going? And when they saw where it was, they said, no, it's not the right city for us.
For those that are not from Calgary, the Green Line is a big topic of discussion with our local municipal government or provincial government that's supposed to be funding. Yeah, you're gonna have to check that out. I won't get into that because that's a whole day on its own discussion. But yeah, our city's grown very quickly. I sometimes relate it to the growth that Denver, Colorado experienced. They hit this point where their infrastructure couldn't support the massive expansion that happened around the time of legalization of cannabis. We've just been having this ever since. It's been like the last 8 years. It's really blown up. I'm gonna have to get metrics on that for sharing later, but
Every metric has grown. It's been incredible. And the amount of money raised and capital raised here has been incredible. So those are all good indicators, but we have to keep up. Like we have to keep our housing at a right level, because if we come Vancouver pricing, we're not going to grow this startup market.
So is that how you think Calgary could better support entrepreneurs and further drive the innovation in the community here?
There's not a lot that a city can do.
Okay.
But I think there are some interesting things. There's been a lot of talk about an innovation district. It's not done yet, but I think it'd be great. I think that the OSIF is a great idea. OSIF being Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund. Right?
Okay.
So Calgary does invest.
Yeah.
In tech, they invest in Platform Calgary. They invest in like different tech supporting organizations. But even Platform Calgary's intake is maybe 20% what Edmonton's cohort is.
Yeah.
So like City of Calgary's not supporting tech enough, not even close. So there's definitely more funding that just needs to happen directly into the tech industry. But the biggest thing is transit, housing, safe communities.
Okay.
Like we need to just deal with the basics so that we attract good companies.
Fair. So we're getting close to the end here. Definitely had a good discussion. Definitely love the component of common good. I've always enjoyed you sharing that stuff. My wrap-up questions that I've asked generally everybody is, the theme of this podcast is celebrating relatable success. How has your definition of success evolved over the years? I'm sure it has different views at different times in your life.
Yeah. All my life, my number one definition of success is just that my kids think I'm a good dad.
That's amazing.
Dad that they can talk to about anything. That's number one. Number two is that people see me as someone who has impact in our community. That isn't just floating, isn't just doing nothing, but is having impact. Someone who's had impact on people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's for me. A salary doesn't do it for me. A big payout doesn't do it for me. Those are all good things. I love to travel. I love having money. I like a sweet whip.
Yeah. It's about impact.
And that comes down, you know what? It comes down to that time when I got sick with the heart sickness.
You think
and
your perspective changed a lot
I
then?
lost my family. Like I lost so much in that moment, and I really was stripped down bare to nothing. I didn't even have a cell phone for a couple months. And I was like...
It shows what you need to be happy too at the same time.
And in those moments, I was the happiest. Like when I look back, those are some of the happiest moments that I remember. Recovering from heart surgery, just nothing else in the world except for relationships and recovering, and that was it. And man, it was good.
And you've built a career around relationships ever since. Probably even a little before, but...
That certainly became, and I don't do many 80-hour weeks. Like it's not worth it.
Unless it excites you. Yeah.
Relationships. I want to get home to my kids. I want to get home to my partner. I want to hang out with friends. I want to do this kind of stuff with good friends. Yeah, this is the stuff that drives me.
I appreciate that. So the last question I have for you, what advice would you give to someone who feels too average to make an impact?
Everybody feels that. You're not alone. Yeah, that's another really you gain some really interesting perspective when I'm probably at 600 entrepreneurs over the last 3-4 years. Like the common themes that come up, and like just the understanding of the journey of entrepreneurship from a founder has been really interesting. And there's not one. There's maybe, I can maybe count on one hand the number of people that were confident enough and felt like
they were meant to be there.
And they were dicks too. Let's just be real. There was a real lack of self-awareness too.
Okay.
But anybody that had any kind of transparency in our calls, which often came very quickly, just the nature of our calls, they would express that fear, right? It would come out, like either they would express it or it would be expressed in the way they actually treat their business. Like they didn't believe in it, didn't believe in themselves, They wouldn't be doing the calls, they won't be doing this, and there'd be oftentimes it'd be like, okay, what's behind this? And it would come out that they didn't believe in themselves, that they were it was imposter syndrome.
Such a common topic. I'm gonna have to have a whole podcast episode on that because it is very common. It's amazing talking to high-level executives, founders, Olympians. They've all had it at some point, if not ongoingly. So that's interesting, but I appreciate that. I wanted to say just thank you very much you are technically my first guest that isn't my immediate university friend.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you taking the time. I do have to say, after 10 years of knowing you, I've always enjoyed how you show up with a level of optimism in everything that you do, and your approach to being a father is definitely something that I give you huge props for. I've talked about it on other podcasts. That's my ultimate goal one day, and I love surrounding myself with people that's a driving factor for them, and they've done it successfully while still maintaining a business and growth mindset.
I don't know about successful, but it's still definitely my drive. I do my best.
Yeah, I appreciate you. For those who don't follow us on Instagram, on Spotify, all the various platforms, please find us, share us, get us out there. We will make sure to have David share a little bit about himself with our summary notes, and be sure to follow us. Let's get after it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.